Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Outside the Echo Chamber, coming to you from inside the state capitol as the 2025 legislative session rolls on. We have passed the deadlines in both the House and the Senate to introduce bills. The next big deadline will be crossover day coming up in just a little bit. But until then, we have our eyes on surprises that pop up here and there during the session. You're always going to find those under the gold dome when the lawmakers are at work. And we had one earlier this week on Monday, when surprisingly in the House, the vaccine bill, a bill that had been pushed by Governor Morrisey as one of his priorities, was shot down. And joining us right off the top to talk about that and what transpired in that chamber is Delegate Evan Worrell from Cabell County. Thanks again for joining us, Evan.
Yeah,
good to see you. How you been?
Been doing well. Thank you very much.
Well, obviously, a lot of people talking about what happened on Monday with the debate that went on in the House with the amendments that were brought up and eventually just scrapping the whole thing. Just talk a little bit about the process and what transpired and how it came to be.
Yeah, so we know this is a governor's bill that came out, he pushed this in the Senate first, and the Senate expanded medical exemptions.
And it breezed through the Senate.
It did, 22-12, I believe, and then we took it up in our House Health Committee. We took on 14 different speakers in a public hearing and listened to people from both sides of the argument. And we met multiple times as a committee, and ultimately we came away with offering an expanded medical exemption, but we did remove the religious and philosophical from our committee. We heard problems, and we wanted to solve problems this year, so that's what we went with. On the floor, as you talked about, many amendments that we went through. Ultimately, there was an amendment to add religious exemption back into the bill. And then, yesterday we took the vote on that, and the body decided they didn't want to move forward with that religious exemption.
So is that basically the crux of what happened here? I mean, you'll run into situations where a bill comes to you, and so many different changes are made that the end result is a bill that doesn't even resemble what it first started out to be. Was that part of the problem? Was that there were so many amendments, there were so many changes that it just didn't even make sense to push it through anymore?
Well, I think ultimately some people had a lot of consternation around the religious exemption, that you could just write a letter and that you would have that exemption. I personally believe that we should be able to do that, but that's just my vote. And ultimately, that's why we have this debate. It should be this difficult. I want to be honest. It should be this difficult. We debated it yesterday. I think we heard from 26 different delegates yesterday debating on this. And ultimately, it failed. The bill failed. But it was important to go through that process and understand where we are.
Now, you talked about your side of it. Do you appreciate the other side of it as well? I know there was some concern from delegates like Mike Pushkin that said, if we put in all of these exemptions, you're basically neutering the bill to the point where anybody can just claim an exemption, and then you don't even have a law at all.
Yeah, it's true. And I have looked at this a lot. I agree with what he was saying as far as the concern there. But we do have 45 other states that are offering these types of religious exemptions as well. So that was we were trying to be a 46th state to offer this exemption. We weren't doing something groundbreaking here. We weren't doing something brand new here. So I think at the end of the day, that's where, some people side on that. But ultimately, like I said, the body decided that they didn't want to move forward with that. And so the bill was defeated yesterday.
Now, this was a bill that was pushed by the governor. It was his bill, one of his priorities. Have you heard yet from anybody from the governor's office about what the feedback is from that end?
I have not. And of course, we have the governor put in an executive order as well about this offering a religious and philosophical exemption. But I haven't talked to the governor's office on this. Once again, this went through the process, and ultimately our members just didn't agree with moving it forward. So, at the end of the day, that is how this process should work, whether a bill passes or dies. It went through that entire process, and that was the end of it.
Now we have passed the point where you can introduce new bills, but there are always ways to get around some things with the way that the machinations of government work.
Yeah.
So sometimes you say a bill's dead, and it's not really dead. For those who may not be aware of exactly how that transpired and what it means to vote that down, is the vaccine bill dead?
I would say Senate Bill 460 is dead, and I say that because those amendments were done last Friday, and based on our House rules, we could not reconsider our actions on those amendments that happened. The only thing we could do is reconsider the bill itself, but I think our House spoke very clearly yesterday. There are other bills that need to come through. What we have found out through this entire process, which I think is very important, we have a problem with the medical exemption, the way we go about it. We have a problem with that process, and we need to solve that process. So we'll continue to have conversations as to whether we can go in and change that medical process.
Now, you talk about process. There are new procedures in place this year in the House where a bill gets stretched out a little more to give it a little more breathing room, to give delegates a chance to kind of go through it and drill down to the details. They took debate from the public off the House floor, moved it into committee. What's been that process like for you as a delegate? Do you think it's worked, or do you think there's still some tweaks that might need to be made?
Well, as a House Health Committee chairman, I think we're right now we have the longest health committees than anybody else that had any other committees.
Right.
But I think it has worked because we've had a lot of great input and a lot of public input into that. And what's so different about that this year? Remember, we talked about this before. Before, if you did a hearing in the House chamber, you get to come up and say what you wanted and walk away.
Right.
Now you're getting to come up and talk, but our members are getting to engage.
There's
with you.
feedback. There's interaction.
There's a captive audience, right? You get to engage with the people that want to speak. That has been amazing. We've seen our members really get engaged, and that's what I ultimately want. I want our members to be informed and educated so they can make appropriate votes on the decisions they're making for that legislation.
Crossover Day will be here before you know it. Until then, we'll probably have our eyes on some other bills, wondering what shoe might drop. Do you anticipate any other surprises coming up soon?
I don't. We have a lot of things we got to get out this week. This is the last week we got to get out House bills, so our agenda is packed with that this week, and then next week on Wednesday is crossover day, and then we'll start working on the Senate bills. But I don't really see any surprises here, but we do have a lot of work still needed to be done on our child welfare issues, our foster care crisis, and we're continuing down that path, and so we hope to get those done the rest of the week and then ready for them to go over to the Senate and hopefully see a good process over there as well.
And a lot of people are watching those bills as well, specifically with what's been going on in the news recently. Do you anticipate any major drastic changes to any of those bills, or do you think that they're on a good path right now?
I think they're on a good path. I'll say this, we got to take incremental steps to improve this process. We can't fix it overnight. We didn't get here overnight. And so at the end of the 60-day session, I want to be able to look back and say we took these incremental steps to improve the process, and then we watch through the year and see how those are interacted, and then come back next year ready to continue on that work and continue on that momentum.
I'll get you out of here on this. Your overall view so far of how the session has gone and what you still hope to get accomplished given the deadlines that are in place.
Yeah, so I will say the new process has been a big deal, and I think I've been very appreciative of that. I am excited to see some of the final, like I said, we have some different types of opioid addiction recovery stuff we're trying to do that'll come out of our House Health Committee and out of the House. But I'm also excited with some of the Senate bills coming over. We've got a lot of different things coming across the hall that we look to take up in the House Health Committee. I'm really excited, but here we are with only, 2.5 weeks left, and it's almost over. I told you before, session seems to take 5 years, but it's over in 3 days that could never happen.
Yeah, and once those deadlines start stacking up, it sparks debate and things get moving.
It does.
All right, well, Delegate Evan Worrell, we thank you for your time once again, sir. And you mentioned the other chamber. We're going to talk next with a senator about some bills that people have their eyes on over in that chamber, so don't go anywhere. There's still more outside the echo chamber from inside the state capitol coming up right after this.
Are you ready to unlock a future filled with remarkable pay, unbeatable benefits, and unparalleled satisfaction? Imagine embarking on a journey that offers you a college-level education without the weight of debt, all while earning a steady income. Look no further than the West Virginia Building and Construction Trades Apprenticeship Programs. Join us, and together, let's build a future that's brighter and stronger. Go to actwv.org to apply today. The West Virginia Building and Construction Trades, where the future is forged.
Welcome back inside the state capitol on this Outside the Echo Chamber. Joining us now to talk about some bills that people have their eyes on in the Senate is Senator Mark Maynard from Wayne County. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about specifically the motorcycle safety bill and the DEI bill. So we'll start with the motorcycle safety bill because it's through the House now over in your chamber.
Okay.
A lot of people are wondering, basically, okay, so we're just going to allow people to stand up on their motorcycles. Was this even necessary? I mean, drill down a little bit into this bill, what it does and doesn't do, because it's a talker right now for when you have a headline like, hey, you can stand up on your motorcycle. People think Evel Knievel. Yeah. People are wondering, why are we even getting into this kind of stuff? Talk about that bill and where it stands right now in the Senate, because I know that you're part of the government organization and finance committees that are talking about that bill.
The way I understand the bill, and if anyone's ever ridden on their motorcycle, and I've been riding motorcycles since I was in the 3rd grade, if you stand up on a motorcycle, if there's a bump ahead, it gives you just a little bit extra suspension. Maybe when this code was put in place, it was talking about people standing on the seat, which is a trick that some people do, and maybe it just wasn't well written, but there were people getting tickets for standing on their foot pegs, which is just a safety factor. If there's a bump coming up,
almost like using your body as a shock absorber.
Exactly. Your legs cushion blow, and it's actually a safety factor. And to not be able to stand up on your foot pegs is, ludicrous. And so this bill just simply gets rid of that.
So for you, much ado about nothing?
Yeah. I mean, it needs to happen because I think it shouldn't be in the code. There's people out here innocently getting tickets for standing on their foot pegs and we need to, get rid of that.
Do you think that that's part of a microcosm of maybe a larger issue with certain things in the code? Because obviously nobody sits there and reads through every line of the state code. And so you have to go through these bills time after time when these problems arise, when people start interpreting it in certain ways to be like, okay, well, I guess we do have to put that in because people are actually getting tickets for it.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to hold ourselves up in here for about a year
right.
and go through our code and
just
not add anything new to it. Just get rid of the repeal some bad language. And West Virginia's got this reputation for being overly regulated, overly restrictive. And just like this motorcycle bill, just one at a time we're getting them out. But we need to do this to a lot of parts of the code.
All right. Another bill that people are talking about is the DEI bill, which would basically ban DEI instruction. Talk a little about the specifics of that bill, because a lot of people, the headlines get the attention. Oh, banning DEI, and they think it's like an all-encompassing bill. But does this have specific language involved where you're talking about endpoints for certain grades, or how's that work?
To me, it's basically making things merit-based on who is the best person for the job, as opposed to, we need X amount of this race or X amount of females. Many times I feel like the best candidate is not chosen due to the DEI regulations. And this just makes a level playing field, and the person with the best merits will get the job.
So how would that be enforced? Is it basically a discrimination bill saying you can't pick and choose people based on things other than just their qualifications? Yeah,
that's basically what it does. It takes away the DEI, which I'm all in favor of being fair in all possible ways, but we just need the best possible candidates for the jobs and positions and all across the state. So that's all the bill does.
Now, in the House, I know this is out of your hands, but there's the vaccine bill on Monday got killed. That was a bill that was pushed by the governor. It breezed through your chamber relatively easily. I believe it was like 22-12 or something. What are your thoughts on what transpired over there? There's some scuttlebutt, and of course you hear all these rumors going on when you're under the Gold Dome. I want to specifically ask you a question, because there are some people saying that Senate leadership, and I know that you probably can't speak to this because that's different than what you're talking about, but that they're talking about maybe holding some House bills hostage because of what happened.
I don't know anything about that, but what's funny about this bill is it passed with an amendment on Friday.
Right.
And then the same bill went before the whole chamber on third reading, and it failed. So I don't know if over the weekend, if some individuals got to the few that were on the fence and got them to come back. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, as you know, a lot of times with things, when any amendments are discussed or when any changes are made to a bill, it changes the thought process, and sometimes a bill at the end
change their mind.
Doesn't really resemble the bill as it started.
Yeah.
And when you start adding these amendments, these I guess more ways to get out of it, so to speak. I don't want to use that term because it sounds like people have nefarious plans, but more exemptions, more. You stack those up, it neuters the entire bill sometimes. And I think that was some of the argument from delegates like Mike Pushkin, that you keep adding all these exemptions, we don't even have a bill anymore. It's not even a law.
Yeah, but really, it's not anti-vaccination. It's still, vaccinations are still required across the board. But for those that have a vaccine-injured child, or have taken the test that their children are going to be vaccination injured, this just gives them an opportunity to opt out, because it's nearly impossible now with the medical examiner to exempt a child. So some of the stories are pretty horrific if you really dive into it. We really need some exemptions.
So the deadline to introduce bills has passed. The next big deadline will be crossover day coming up. It'll be here before you know it. Do you expect any surprises or changes like what we saw Monday in the House with bills that you now think are on fast track that might not? Or?
You never know what can happen up here.
Yeah, so what are you looking forward to? What's on your agenda for the week, or what do you hope to get done?
Well, this is our last week to get a Senate bill out of the Senate,
right.
And So it's going to be a real busy week. Saturday's our official last day to have a Senate Billing Committee to send it to the House. So we're going to be really busy. I'm looking forward to this Friday and Saturday. I'm going to give a little plug here. It's West Virginia Motorsports and Adventure Travel Day.
We talked about that last year.
Yeah, when the guys are going to be here in the Rotunda on Friday. Then outside is going to be the Motorsports Show on Saturday. Then we're leaving here at 3 to go to Appalachian Off-Road Outlaw Trails Park here nearby that we're going to do a little tour of that Saturday evening. So
obviously that's a huge draw here in this region. What's the feedback been like on those type of events? And
really positive. It just adds on to what Hatfield-McCoy Trail System is doing, and I think it's a great opportunity for the state. I will say too, if you have a motorsports vehicle, there's going to be a public car show outside just in the parking lot here at the Capitol grounds. So please bring your show car or your motorsports vehicle, side by side, whatever, bring it here to the Capitol on Saturday.
Those are always fun to just check out and compare and see. I do want to mention, by the way, that the DEI Bill 474 did get reported out of finance yesterday.
It's on second reading today.
Okay, so that is moving now. It was stuck in finance for a couple of weeks. What was the holdup there with that? Do you remember?
Was no holdup. It's just
things.
We've been receiving reports from agencies on their financial status, and that's just how the Finance Committee works.
All right. So what do you hope more than anything else to get done before the final day?
I've got some bills that I'm married to really that I've really spent a lot of time on. One of them is a PSD bill that gives PSC authority to help them, audit them, and make sure they're doing the right things. I've had a lot of water problem issues in my district, and it's across the state. And this just gives some guardrails and guidelines for these PSDs to operate by. So.
And a lot of people wondering, that they always see their utility bills going up. Very rarely do they go down. So a lot of people, keeping their eyes on a variety of bills that have to do with what utilities can or can't do,
exactly.
and how to maybe get those rates down for a lot of people that are on fixed incomes and rely on knowing what they're going to expect. All right, Senator Mark Maynard, we appreciate your time today, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and good luck for the rest of the session. And again, get on out here and check out those cars.
Yep.
Friday and Saturday. There's
inside Friday, outside Saturday.
All right, perfect. And don't go anywhere because, here on Outside the Echo Chamber, we always try to stay balanced. So coming up, we're going to hear from a Democrat from the House of Delegates about what's going on and what he can expect for the rest of the session as Outside the Echo Chamber from inside the state capitol continues right after this.
CJU is a great company to work for. We've been around for 78 years. We are an underground utility construction company all across the East Coast. We are rapidly growing, and we're seeing a huge growth in this market, a huge need for employees. We are always looking for those that are experienced, those that are trying to get their foot in the door. We have positions for everybody. We offer competitive pay. We offer competitive benefits. We take pride in having a family atmosphere at CJU's, and it's truly just a family company.
Welcome back to Outside the Echo Chamber from inside the state capitol. And by the way, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, be sure to like us and subscribe so that you'll know when the latest episode of Outside the Echo Chamber is posted. As I mentioned before the break, we try to stay fair and balanced here and get both sides of the issue. So we also like ratings, and this gentleman sitting next to me always delivers on that. It's the Shawn Fluharty show anytime that you're on. Delegate Fluharty, thanks for your time again.
Thanks for having me.
We talked a little bit with Senator Mark Maynard and Delegate Evan Worrell about the bill that has a lot of people talking. You are now allowed to stand up on your motorcycle bill. I already see where you're going with this. One side is saying, it's just cleaning up code. It was necessary. People were standing up to kind of be a shock absorber, and they were getting ticketed for it. It's not like they're Evel Knievel standing on the seat.
I like you mentioned Evel Knievel.
But my whole thought is, are we really at the point where this kind of bill, during this type of session, is necessary?
I think it's a great example of how we're not doing a damn thing to help West Virginians. And we've run out of any good ideas, so they have to put stuff like standing on a motorcycle. How embarrassing for the state, for the legislature, to have bills like that running through while you can't drink water in southern West Virginia, while our utility bills are through the roof, while people are struggling to find jobs.
And that's a microcosm of what we're seeing now, because look, foster care issue.
When you're sitting down at the dinner table with your family, nobody's talking about standing on a damn motorcycle. Okay? That's the reality of it. Right. But yet we're running legislation through here. That's why I got up on the House floor. I was so frustrated and did the whole vroom vroom West Virginia. Like, look at this hard-hitting legislation. And instead, Evel Knievel couldn't jump over the list of bills that do nothing for the state, because I've been here for quite a while now. And I will tell you, this is the most do-nothing legislature.
Why?
Legislative session.
What's happened?
we have a new governor who can't get his own bills passed. I think there's a fracture in the supermajority. So instead of trying to do the heavy lifting on policy, they just kick back on sound bites and political bills, stuff that they can send negative mailers out on people like me at the end of the day. I mean, it's all about politics, staying in your seat and sitting down here for 30 years. I mean, it's insane to me. And I think West Virginians are growing frustrated. Finally. You saw it with the immunization bill yesterday that went up in flames, and that was one of Morrissey's, signature pieces of legislation. And certificate of need went up in flames, another signature piece of legislation for the governor. So the governor can't even get his own bills passed. And
With
you're
a
not
supermajority.
Of the supermajority. I mean, we have 11 total Democrats out of 134 members. They should be able to pass anything they want. So for West Virginians that are watching, how are they helping you in your priorities, your family's priorities? They have no idea how to govern. They're great at getting elected. They're great at that. But they can't govern. And I think people are waking up to that.
How do you get that change with the numbers that you have without just being loud about it? I mean,
I think
what's the
our part
the strategy from Democrats?
The strategy from my end is to be as frustrated as the average West Virginian is with the way our government works, regardless of party. I hear from plenty of Republicans who are frustrated with what's going on here. I share my frustrations. That's why I'm still here, because I'm vocal and I have no problems telling anybody, regardless of party, what I think. But what I think right now, this is a do-nothing legislature that has done nothing to help West Virginians. I knew that was coming. I said it on day one, and we're on, day 42, 43 now? And guess what? We've still done nothing. So let's not pretend at the end, when we gavel out on day 60 and everybody gets up and claps, about what? What are we proud of right now? What are we doing to help West Virginians?
Well, I'll tell you this: a lot of people, when they complain, it's like, well, don't complain, do something about it. And there's no argument that you do something about it. You get up there, you get on the forefront of it, and regardless of the numbers, you fight for what you believe. Are
Absolutely.
they listening?
They are. And I'll say this: we saw it yesterday. On Friday, when that amendment was passed on the immunization bill, which opened it up and basically rescinded all medical exemptions, opened the door for non-medical exemptions without any criteria, any reporting methods, anything that actually protects West Virginians going forward, the frustrations reached the peak level, and we received more emails, phone calls, average West Virginians reaching out, seeing what was happening, and in large part because we were the messenger. The Democratic Party was the messenger on what exactly was happening, and West Virginians responded. And when West Virginians respond, things happen. And you saw that bill go down in flames because West Virginians are frustrated that we're taking up something that sets us back on an issue that we're actually number one in. We're doing very well in. So I guess our goal is to be 50th in everything because that's what we're working on. But the point is, yes, West Virginians are finally waking up and they're frustrated with what's not happening here because we're not targeting big issues.
I know one of your Democratic colleagues in the House, Delegate Mike Pushkin, was bringing up the fact that if you keep adding all these exemptions, you're basically neutering the bill. There's no law at all because if you could just write on a piece of paper, I don't want the shot. What's
Sticky
the point?
note. Yeah. I asked about that directly on the House floor for the Green Amendment. And, there was no analysis done. There was no homework done. If you turned in that legislation to your teacher, you're going to get an F because it was inadequate and it was awful policy. So it was bad government, bad policy. As I said yesterday, I wish we had an immunization for bad government because we need that right now in West Virginia.
Now, the deadline's passed to get bills introduced. Crossover day will be here before you know it. Do you expect any other kind of surprises between now and then?
I think you're going to see some even more infighting than what's already taking place. If you think about it, governor's bills not moving. The Senate's signature bill, which was the immunization bill, died on the House floor yesterday. So what happens next? Does the Senate slow up House bills? Is there going to be a fight between two chambers to try to get some sort of bill out related to immunizations? That's the $1 million question. I'm here long enough to know bills are not entirely dead until the 60th day.
Right. Dead doesn't mean dead. And you mentioned infighting. Is that a result of the numbers that they have? Because when you have that type of supermajority,
sure,
a lot of times you'll see a party fracture in these different factions.
That's part of it, but I also think the bigger part of this here is that there's a lack of a real plan. So we didn't come into the 60-day session and say, here are the bills we're going to move to raise new revenue because we face a $400 million deficit, according to the governor. I haven't seen any legislation moving that raises new revenue. Now, Democrats have proposed the legalization of adult use cannabis, which will raise hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, shrink the black market.
Do you think that'll ever have a chance with the numbers that the Republicans have?
With this supermajority, they think Reefer Madness is a real documentary and they govern like it's 1925 and not 2025. So no, I don't think that's a reality. But the reality is West Virginians are ready for it, and they won't even put it on the ballot to let West Virginians vote on it. Do you have a true democracy if your own government's saying you can't vote on an issue that you're actually concerned about? Because I live in the Northern Panhandle. We know that Ohio passed it with 60% of the vote. Nobody can agree on 60% of anything these days, but yet in Ohio, 60% of the electorate went to the ballot box and voted in favor of adult use cannabis. Now West Virginians cross the border, and every cannabis dispensary has a West Virginia license tag on it. So what are we doing as a state? Because we're not making a single dollar off of it. So what are they going to do with this $400 million deficit? Raise your taxes? Because that's the only plan they're going to have on the books, is raising your... Do you think your taxes should be raised? I can tell you Democrats don't think your taxes should be raised.
I think there are definitely some problems with tax code everywhere, and that I don't know if there's a simple solution, but I think something needs to be done.
The goal should be raising new revenue, but that requires good policy and sitting down and doing the homework. And they're not pushing good policy because they can't push good legislation. That's the end of the day. That's what's happening here.
Now, the budgetary issues will likely get addressed in a special session. That almost certainly is coming.
Well, the governor told us we had a $400 million deficit. Now, the House Finance Chairman seems to disagree with him. So there goes your infighting example. They can't even agree on how much money we need to raise.
So what do you do between now and the day that they finally gavel out? What's your plan
for the budget?
Just in general.
Share my frustrations like all West Virginians.
Just continue to be Delegate Shawn Fluharty. Huh?
Well, no, I continue to represent the people. I mean, that's what this is all about.
I didn't mean to flippantly.
No, I understand that, but like I'm frustrated. I can disagree with policy, and I can disagree with political parties fight with each other. But I think we all can agree, at least work to a main objective of moving West Virginia forward. We may disagree on what that looks like, but at least start moving the ball down the road. And politics is easy. Policy is not.
Right.
And we govern by conspiracy theories and pure politics. We don't put policy first. Because if you put policy first, you put West Virginians first. And we're not doing that. So I'm as frustrated as I've ever been. I've been the loudest I've ever been because of it. Because at the end of the day, we're down here for only 60 days. I actually introduced a resolution to change that. Because if we're not going to do anything when we're here, we should save taxpayers some money. We should show up every 2 years for a full 60-day session. And then every year pass a budget with a 30-day session. So a full session every... Texas does that. Texas, what's their population compared to ours? They meet every 2 years. Why does West Virginia need to meet every year for a 60-day session and do nothing?
You call it
Go out and have lobbyist dinners? Let me know what you're going to do.
You know how it works. You call it a do-nothing session. Some might just say uneventful. One thing that did transpire yesterday in the Senate in Finance was they finally reported the DEI bill out of committee. It's on the floor now. It was stuck in Finance for about 2 weeks.
Another hard-hitting piece of legislation. Wow.
Get your blood boiling.
We had genital inspections in the House, another hard-hitting piece of legislation. Now we're going to have a DEI bill. I mean, seriously? Are you sitting down at night? Do you give a crap about a DEI bill, these bathroom bills? Like, are families discussing that? No. Do you? You sit down with your family and talk about DEI and say, West Virginia University better close their department on DEI. That'll really move us forward. I mean, people are just going to flock to West Virginia because we're implementing a DEI bill.
I will say this. I think most people wake up and are worried about paying their bills, taking care of their family, getting their kids to school on time, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. Okay, so does a DEI bill have a fiscal note to it?
Well, that's a good way to kill a bill, I'll tell you that much.
Well, it doesn't have a fiscal note because it doesn't raise a single dollar for the state of West Virginia. Does it have an economic analysis on how many jobs will be created? I'm wondering how it's going to impact veterans. Workforce West Virginia gives preference to veterans, and if you have a true DEI program, this can negatively impact our veterans in our state. But they don't think that through because DEI sounds good when the elections roll around for political purposes.
Well, didn't mean to get you fired up right before session, but
we're taking up hard-hitting legislation today.
We're
taking up a bill about drones being used to hunt wild boar. I kid you not, West Virginia. That's one of the bills on the agenda today. Using drones to hunt wild boar.
Well, that's a good tease for people to check out. They have a live stream of it every day, so you can check out what they're doing and what Shawn has to say about it in Chambers. Hey, Shawn, always a pleasure.
Lions, tigers, and boar and bad legislation. My.
Thanks for your time, Shawn. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Outside the Echo Chamber. Not only want to thank Delegate Shawn Fluharty, but also Senator Mark Maynard and Delegate Evan Worrell for their time today. And thanks to you for joining us again. And we'll be back with another Outside the Echo Chamber on Thursday as we continue to talk about the issues that are important to you and your family. Until then, I'm Rick Lord. Take care.